Good evening, everybody. Christ is risen. Blessing of the Lord be upon you. We are continuing our Bible study in the book of Genesis, the story of Joseph. This Bible study, as we well know, is performed with the blessing of His Grace Bishop Longin. So, we have left off at chapter 37. Chapter 38, we shall skip, more family dynamics. And chapter 39 in the book of Genesis talks about Joseph being in Egypt, how he was bought by this man Potiphar, and how he was very successful there, became the ruler of the household, and was then unjustly falsely accused of something, and he ended up in prison. Once again, buried. So, chapter 40, we shall read from here, because many elements of the story are now connected and important. So, here we go. Book of Genesis, chapter 40. It came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against the two of his officers, and against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner, when thou wast his butler. But think on me, when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing, that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all of his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants, and he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forget him. A very important event with these two dreams. This will be crucial very soon after this. But just a side note concerning the dreams and the interpretations, as some of us might well know and have noticed and heard, it might be very popular among our people to attempt to interpret dreams. So, the same good book, the Bible, says in another place, dream comes from a multitude of business. Just because a person dreams something, even if there is an emotion connected to that dream, even if it seems vivid, that's just the manner in which the brain is working at the time, it doesn't mean that they are receiving revelations from above and that they need to interpret them in some way. Actually, what happens in those occasions when people are trying too hard to make a mystery out of something ordinary, like I said, we'll find this quote later on, inevitably, dream comes from a multitude of business. Especially nowadays, brothers and sisters, with how much information input there is coming through our senses into our minds. All of the information is processed in there, too much of it is stored in there. It provides people with imagery, with concepts, and all of that is getting digested while we sleep, mentally speaking, digested. So, let's not always imagine that every single dream is a grand mystery to be interpreted. If the Lord wants to show somebody something through a dream or otherwise, it will be clear. It's not going to be a matter of confusion and fear and misinterpretations and all sorts of drifting away from the way that we would do things as Christians. You see what Joseph said here to the two prisoners. The interpretation is up to God. Now tell me your dreams. Which means the man was both illumined by God and humbled enough to be able to tell them, just tell me what they are. I'm not doing this for glory or for money. I want to help you out. Tell me your dreams. And immediately the Lord told him what their dreams meant. So we move on. Chapter 41, Book of Genesis. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored, kine and fetid and fat-fleshed cows, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other cows upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed cow did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat cows. So Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good, and behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. So, to paraphrase a couple of verses here, obviously, the butler finally remembers Joseph and says there is a Hebrew man in prison who knows how to interpret dreams, which, as we said, he is doing by God's providence, by God illuminating him to do so. And the Pharaoh calls Joseph to come over and interpret the dreams to him. And Joseph tells him, the 7 good fatted cows are 7 good years of harvests, as well as the 7 good ears of corn. And then the 7 sickly looking cows and the 7 ears of corn destroyed by the east wind are 7 years of famine. So Joseph tells the Pharaoh what he should do. Set aside a certain amount of food, grain and otherwise, and store it over the 7 years for the 7 years of famine that are coming. And Pharaoh did so, realized soon enough that there really are 7 good years coming, built huge storage houses for all this food, and was prepared for the 7 years of famine. And in the process, Joseph became the number 2 man in the entire kingdom of Egypt, right next to Pharaoh. And Joseph was in charge of building a lot of these things, the food storages, and had received quite a great position of power in the kingdom of Egypt. So now the famine begins, not only in the land of Egypt, but in the entire region. If you look at the map, if you went by car nowadays, you would go out of Egypt east and turn north, and you are in Israel. It wouldn't take more than a day of traveling. So, where Jacob was still living with his 11 sons and his daughters and all of that big tribe and all the people and everything else that they would have at the time, there was starvation there also, famine. So, chapter 42, we shall read a little bit again. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do ye look one upon another? Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt, but Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, Lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over all the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came, and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the earth. The first dream is becoming true, where they were portrayed as the sheaves of corn, and he is the one standing up, and they are bowing down. It was fulfilled right there. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said to them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, You are spies. To see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said unto him, Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come, to see in what a poor condition Egypt is. This is all going somewhere, because Joseph is testing his brethren, his brothers, to see what condition they are in right now. And they said, Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it that I spake to you, saying, You are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together into the ward for 3 days. And Joseph said unto them the 3rd day, This do, and live, for I fear God. If ye be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of this prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. As we can see, they left Joseph in the desert. They were willing to leave him in the pit. Then they changed their mind and sold him to the Midianites, Ishmaelites, to be taken to Egypt. They left him in the desert. They abandoned him. He is testing their condition to see, are they going to leave another? And what happens then? And they said one to another, We are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. Mind you, Joseph can hear them speaking Hebrew, and they don't know that he is their brother who understands them perfectly. So he can see there is some repentance. And Reuben answered them, saying, Did I not speak to you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear? Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them, and wept, and returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way, and thus did he unto them. And they loaded up, and departed thence. And as one of them opened his sack to give the provider in the inn, he saw his money. For behold, it was in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, My money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, What is this that God has done unto us? They left the man who kept their brother Simeon in prison, who has every right to execute their brother, and suddenly their money was with them, and the food was there too. So now they are going up to Canaan to see their father, and they need to return with Benjamin. Meanwhile, their image is the image of thieves. They are returning back to Egypt, guilty. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said unto them, Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and you want to take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. And Reuben spoke unto his father, saying, Slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in which ye go, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Ultimately, the brothers convince their father Jacob to let Benjamin go with them, just so they can show to this governor of the land that Benjamin is real, to prove themselves that they are not liars or spies, because they have no idea it's Joseph waiting for them. And they make it back to Egypt, and apparently the story will have one more part. We'll be back in a moment.